There are definitely a lot of great perks to this job at Dirt Tracks TV, but one of my favorite, there's no question, is traveling all over North America attending some of the biggest and most exciting ATV events this industry has to offer. Of all the events I have attended, there's one which is arguably one of the biggest that I haven't, and that's Highlifter Mud Nationals in Jacksonville, Texas. The Mud Nationals are located at Mud Creek ATV Park, which is about 2 hours from the city of Dallas, Texas. It's an easy drive, it's easy to get to, and the event itself is extremely well laid out. And pretty much any company that makes mud-specific side-by-side and ATV parts. If you want it to run in the mud on your ATV, chances are it's there. You may be wondering why it took Dirt Tracks TV so long to get to the Mud Nationals, and there's a very good reason. Here at Dirt Tracks, we have an extremely strict helmet policy in all of our shoots and all of our trips. Essentially, we believe every rider should wear a helmet whenever they're on their ATV or side-by-side. And at the Mud Nationals, helmets are not required, which makes it difficult for us to film. However, it is not against the law to ride without a helmet in Texas. So we figured we'll bend the rules a little bit because the Mud Nationals is such a huge and awesome event, and we'll just do a disclaimer that says we don't agree with riding without helmets. However, we do agree with attending the Mud Nationals. From the first moment you drive into the Mud Nationals site, you are completely surrounded by the ATV side-by-side industry and everybody who's involved in it. Signs are everywhere. Every company is advertising on fence posts and along fence lines. The people who run the Mud Nationals itself are there at the gate checking for armbands, taking your money to get into the event, giving you brochures, giving you programs and maps. Everybody knows Highlifter for their incredible ATV and side-by-side builds designed primarily to traverse the craziest, gnarliest mud holes in the world. But they also put on the Mud Nationals event, which is, in this industry, the largest mud running event ever. Mud Nationals is supported and presented by a number of large industry partners. This season, Arctic Cat has taken a much more front row seat in helping support Mud Nationals by sponsoring a number of their special events, including a poker run and the Muddercross event that happens on the third day. After we decided to attend the Mud Nationals, we thought we would call Arctic Cat and see if maybe they could provide us with a vehicle to use while we were on site, and also get us behind the scenes to check out just what they're doing and why they're doing it while they're here. Mud Nationals really is the perfect event for a company like Arctic Cat to support, because if you look back in history, they really were the company who started the entire factory-equipped mud ATV category with their initial Mud Pro. Arctic Cat has an entire team here competing in the Muddercross with everything from stock to fully modified vehicles. One of the biggest events here at the Mud Nationals is called the Muddercross. And this is something that was completely foreign to me before I showed up. I'd never even seen this type of event, but I can honestly say after experiencing it, it is pretty awesome. Essentially, a Muddercross track is a trench dug in the ground, usually in a square shape, about 3 to 4 ATVs wide and then filled with mud and water. ATVs line up on the start line and when the flag drops, run around the track as fast as they can, trying to figure out how to get traction and keep their ATV moving forward faster than the guy beside them.
Never seen anything like this before in my life. I've never seen this kind of racing, and this is crazy.
Now, a Muddercross-specific ATV is something that looks nothing like any other race ATV I've ever seen. The plastics are chopped completely off, and there's great big gaping holes all over the place. You would think there would be deflectors for the mud, but the reality is these guys want the mud to flow through the plastics as easily as possible. The tires they run look like something off the front of a tractor, because they are. They're extremely tall and they're very narrow, and the idea is that they can channel through the water and into the mud and grab traction underneath the soft mud when the ground gets harder. These guys ride these bikes in a way they call water wheeling, which is trying to keep the nose of the bike up off of the ground so the rear wheels can get traction. This is something I'd never seen before. It was a bizarre form of racing, and after I'd watched it for, I guess, an hour, I realized there is a lot of technique and a lot of skill involved in getting these bikes around these tracks as fast as possible while keeping yourself from getting crashed by the guy beside you. There's no question Muddercross is hard on both man and machine. A number of the vehicles that were racing either broke down, ingested water, and some of them just plain didn't finish the race. But it was exciting to watch. I had a great time, and it's something I would definitely like to watch and maybe one day compete in myself. The Mud Nationals event is actually about 5 days long, and we were only on site for 2 of them. So far, we've only discussed the first day that we were there. There was still tons of exciting stuff happening the next day. The first day we were at the Mud Nationals, which was Friday, the weather wasn't very good. And even though I looked around and thought the place was super packed full of people and vehicles, any of the people who'd been there before said that it really wasn't that busy. Saturday, on the other hand, was a beautiful day, and there was no question that place was overflowing and getting crazy. The big event on Saturday is the UTV race, and this is something that's relatively new to Mud Nationals. We were there for the practice in the morning and saw the guys ripping around the track, getting a feel for the jumps and getting everything sorted out. After watching them practice, man, I wished I was out there with them. The finals had 2 classes, amateur and professional. And there was actually a lot of people in both classes. In some cases, there was almost 20 guys on the track at the same time. The track itself was wide. There was some awesome jumps, great bermed out corners. It was actually very high speed, and the drivers did a great job of keeping the crowds entertained the entire time. There was even some spectacular crashes, and that really got people excited. The level of competition during this race was at an all-time high. I was actually very surprised at how aggressive the drivers were being, putting a wheel on each other in the corners, pushing each other over the berms. It was exciting to watch, and I bet it was even more exciting to participate in, which is why next year I really want to be participating in this race. There was no lack of excitement during the entire race, and all the spectators hung around until the very last lap. One of the vendors in the food area had a sign that said fried gator. Now, being a Canadian, I've barely even seen a gator, let alone had the opportunity to eat one, but I'm also a super picky eater. However, one of my camera operators, Jake, is not quite as nervous about eating different things as I am.
All right, man. It's done.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right.
Hope it doesn't kill you. Tastes like?
Actually really good.
Tastes like alligator?
Yeah, it tastes exactly like alligator.
Amazing.
Regret not trying fried gator? No. Do I respect Jake for trying it? You're darn straight. I didn't know a whole lot about the Mud Nationals before I arrived, but there was one thing I had heard quite a bit about. It was the sand pit. The sand pit is a location that's actually quite a distance away from the main event grounds. You've got to take this iconic road down along a power line that's always lined up with tons of people going in and out of the sand pit itself. You drive along there for maybe a mile and a half, and then just off of the road in the bush is this great big open sand pit with a lake in the middle. And it doesn't take much to imagine what a whole bunch of guys with jacked up side-by-sides and ATVs are gonna do in a lake in the middle of a sand pit. To wrap up an awesome week of Highlifter Mud Nationals awesomeness, Polaris sponsors a concert. And Polaris never sponsors a concert and does it small time. It's always to the max.
There's a lot of people congregated for this concert right now. Of course, it's an event sponsored by Polaris, so they're giving away a razor, as always. But it's pretty awesome to see these people this excited.
The two acts on Saturday night were Blackwater Bride and the big name, Colt Ford. These guys put on an awesome show that went on late into the evening. People lined up their side-by-sides and ATVs in the crowd, 50 different rows deep, and they all sat on their roofs, they sat on lawn chairs, they stood around the stage and had a great time. This was one of the most friendly, fun environments I've been in a long time. Every single person here was having fun. They wanted to chat, they were happy to see you, they loved interacting with each other and making new friends. It was a great place to hang out, and it was a really good time. At the end of the day, that's what the Mud Nationals is all about. People getting together, riding their side-by-sides and ATVs, getting a little muddy, getting a little dirty, having some fun, and just enjoying this sport with their friends and making new friends along the way. The Highlifter Mud Nationals is an event that every side-by-side and ATV rider should have on their bucket list. And it's one that I now get to check off. It's also one that I can say with complete confidence, I will be back to experience again.
If you like this video, click the link and subscribe to Dirt Trax' YouTube page where we're updating all kinds of fresh stuff like you've just seen.